Now, the UK government says it has no intention to tighten rules covering loan disbursements to Ghana. This follows fears that aid to the country could suffer as a result of the rising perception of corruption in the country. These concerns have also been heightened by the recent expose by Anas Aremiyar Anas, which connected some senior government officials to serious corruption in football administration. But the British High Commission to Ghana, Ian Walker, tells Joy Business in an interview the development rather shows a lot is being done to expose these corrupt officials.
Look, I think we must never be one-dimensional about things. We must never think that because of corruption everything's a disaster. We must also never think that because things are great they're they're absolutely fantastic. What we've got to be is real and realistic, and realistic in our exchanges. And I think that I know the UK thinks incredibly highly of Ghana. It thinks of Ghana as a great destination to do business, and it will think that even more if it grips some of the challenges of corruption that are not unique to Ghana. But I think on the back of what we've seen in the last few days, I think a sense of gripping that is exactly the kind of thing that gives investors confidence. And I hope that will be what will happen next.
So what more should we expect from UK investors?
So the UK invest massively in Ghana. We have a huge number of private sector companies already in Ghana in major sectors across the whole country. We do a huge amount in development. We have about 49 different projects, development projects worth up to about 1.8 billion. We still spend £125 million a year through DFID, and we're really keen to do more than we're doing today. But we've got to change our relationship and get it much more focused on common priorities, and priorities that are really going to drive Ghana and the UK forward together. Because let's not kid each other, the world is changing, we need each other. Countries that share common values need to stick together, and I care passionately that we do that hand in hand, and I'm encouraged, I'm optimistic that we can do that. We've got a very good base from which to make that happen.
Our government is working closely with the Bank of Ghana to firmly stabilize the Ghana cedi. This is one of several measures being worked out by managers of the Center of the Economy to help deal with rising fuel prices. There's more in the following report.
Joy Business gathers the meeting, which has been ongoing for the past 2 days, was looking at some temporary measures to deal with the rising price of petroleum products. Per understanding, as part of the strategies, Bank of Ghana is expected to take additional measures to firmly stabilize the cedi by increasing dollar support as well as other regulatory measures. This is because some oil marketing companies are betting on the depreciating cedi to increase their prices. It is also looking at reducing the supply cost of some oil marketing companies, a move that would directly help reduce prices on the market. Government will as well take measures to lessen the impact of hikes on inflation and transport fares on the economy.
Now, Managing Director of the Ghana Stock Exchange, Kofi Yamwa, says he is stepping up efforts to address the low number of listed companies on the Ghana Alternative Exchange Markets, GAX. Speaking to Joy Business, he outlined some of these measures, such as targeting education and listing support fund they are putting in place to encourage smaller companies to list on the market as a means of raising funds to grow their business.
It's a combination of factors. Yes, cultural issue, but cultural issues with time will go away with education. And we've stepped out our education, not mass media education, but targeted education, targeted at the companies that are potentially can be listed on the GAX. We have what we call sessions with potential companies, and we do that regularly. This year we've done quite a number of them. We call certain potential companies and take them through the benefits and the processes associated with going to the market, i.e. the GAX market. And that is going very well. We believe that with time that will lead to they shedding away this culture of wanting to hold 100% of that. It also is a question of preparedness. And so as and when they come and we take them through the various processes, it leads them to sign on to advisors so that the advisors will begin the preparatory ground, because it doesn't take 2 months for them to get up, take the decision and be listed on the exchange. It takes some number of months over than 2 months. So yes, the education is going side by side with the fact that some of them are beginning to see the good benefit of signing on with advisors so that they can begin the preparatory stage. And we have put in other benefits. One is the listing support fund, in which we say that when the company decides to use the market, we will provide a support fund where they can tap into, pay the upfront advisory cost of preparing to come to the market, so that when they go to the market and raise the money from the offer, they can pay us back at no interest. So that is also catching on. And as we did early this part of the year 2018, there are a number of companies that are in the preparatory stages of coming to this market. One, we need to let the economic macro fundamentals hold, i.e. the interest rates, the exchange rate stability, inflation to hold, because if we can have that hold, then businesses can do much in terms of being able to forecast into the future, being able to plan better, and also investors being able to, on the back of macroeconomic stability, decide to either invest in the capital market or the financial market.
It's live with the Friday edition of the Marketplace with me, Emmanuel Abuaji. Let's now turn our attention to one of our top stories today. And Accra High Court has turned down a request by China-based company BXC, asking it to halt the ongoing Electricity Company of Ghana ECG concession process. The Millennium Development Authority, MIDA, had justified its disqualification of the company, saying that there was potential conflicts of interest because of the existence of prior contracts between ECG and BXC. But the High Court Judge Justice Jerome Nkrumah, in his ruling, said irredeemable consequence will befall ECG and the state if the court granted the injunction. My colleague Joseph Akablay, who was in court today, has joined me in the studio to tell us more and to give us some more explanation. Now, Joseph, you're welcome to the Marketplace.
Thank you.
All right, so how did we come, or how did we get to this position now?
So we know that a number of companies have been bidding to take over the management of ECG. Now, a number of them put in their bids. It was pruned down to 2. It had to do with Meralco and the BXC, which is a China-based company. And now that company was disqualified when we asked from the Millennium Development Authority. The explanation they gave was that it was because the company had some contracts that were already running with ECG. So handing them the management of ECG may put them in a potential conflict of interest situation. So on that basis, they wrote to the company disqualifying them from the bidding process, and that is how come the bid was handed eventually to Meralco Consortium to lead that particular consortium that would take over ECG eventually. Now, this company was dissatisfied and headed to the court, asking that they have been treated unfairly. They said the MIDA didn't have any basis to have disqualified them and acted arbitrary in not giving them an opportunity to respond to the issues of potential conflict of interest that they had identified. So they asked that the court injunct the ongoing concession process. But the judge disagreed in his decision today. His explanation is that there are some timelines, that we have to assess some funds from the MCC. There are some timelines. The judge's argument is that in the event he injuncts the process and eventually the company wins the case in court against MIDA, what would they be bidding for? Because we would have missed the timelines and will not get access to those funds. So it means that what they want to take part in, they may not even end up taking part in it at all.
That doesn't then mean that after the release of the funds by the United States government, the court case can still proceed? So
it means that as it stands, the court case can go on. They can hear the substantive case as to whether their disqualification is appropriate or not. But now the process that is leading to meeting the timelines to ensure that the government assesses those funds can still go on. And once they assess it, if eventually a court rules against MIDA, then whatever orders the court give will also take effect.
Right. So what are the process? The ongoing process by the MIDA and ECG.
So we know that the current state is that they've identified the Meralco Consortium to lead it. We know that they are supposed to have local partners. The president had talked about the fact that that was very important to his government. So that is what we are told is also underway. So once they identify those local partners, then they take it a step further in terms of the agreement and the structure that will be put in place to run ECG.
All right, thank you very much for that update, Joseph. And now it's my colleague Joseph Akablay bringing us up to speed with developments from the High Court today, where the injunction requested to be placed on the consortium, the ECG kind of arrangement, was halted or was cancelled by the judge, or the presiding judge, Justice Jerome Nkrumah, today, which paves way for the ongoing process for the concession agreement to go on. Now, away from that, government, through the Energy Ministry, is embarking on a 10-year project to establish a $1 billion petroleum hub. The hub, when completed in 10 years' time, is expected to see Ghana become one of the leading exporters of refined crude in Africa. This was made known at the second edition of the Ghana International Petroleum Conference, which ends in Accra later today. Now, so we want to throw more light on this development, and joining us on the line is energy expert Ishmael Ejekunhi to explore the topic further. Good afternoon, Ishmael. You are on the marketplace today. All right, so we sincerely apologize for the loss of Ishmael Ejekunhi. We'll certainly put him back on the line as and when we get through to him. But let's move on now. And former chief executive of the Ghana National Petroleum Corporation, Alex Mould, is charging government to do a better analysis on the petroleum downstream sector before beginning to establish new refinery in the country. According to him, the decision to establish a new refinery has both negative and positive impacts, which government should consider critically before making the final decision. Alex Mould made the call when commenting on the subject to refine or not to refine in West Africa at the closing panel for the Ghana International Petroleum Conference in Accra.
Whether it is prepared to run Temoro Refinery in an efficient manner or run it in the manner it has been run in the last 15, 20 years on a party, stop, go way. And if it is prepared to run it efficiently, it needs to do the right thing. It needs to bring in the right process engineers to validate what the Temoro Refinery engineers are saying. Once the shareholder is sure that he can upgrade the refinery or he can fix the refinery, he needs to know how much he is going to spend. Once he knows how much he is going to spend, he now has to decide how he is going to raise that money. Are you going to raise, and because the shareholder is currently the government, the only way they can raise money is from taxes. So are you going to use your tax revenue to fix the Temoro Refinery, or are you going to ask the Temoro Refinery to go on its own as a limited liability company that it is to the market to raise money, which has proven quite difficult? Or you're going to ask for new investors or new money to come into a Temoro Refinery. You could do that by issuing an IPO like MTN is doing, and everybody's in a frenzy to buy MTN. I don't know whether people have been in a frenzy to buy a Temoro Refinery IPO. But you can raise money through an IPO, or you can bring in a strategic investor. Now, that word strategic investor, we need to look at it very carefully. It means somebody is going to bring in money, help you rehabilitate your existing asset. He's going to take a share in that asset, and he's going to take control of that asset. Now, I'm not the shareholder. We all are the shareholder, actually.
All right, so that was former CEO of the GNPC, Alex Mould. Let's now get back to our earlier story, where government, through the Energy Ministry, is embarking on a 10-year project to establish a $1 billion petroleum hub. The hub, when completed in 10 years' time, is expected to see Ghana become one of the leading exporters of refined crude in Africa. Now, this was made known at the second edition of the Ghana International Petroleum Conference, which ends in Accra today. So we want to throw some more light, and we're joined once again by energy expert Ishmael Ejekunhi to tell us some more clarification to this particular session by the Energy Ministry as to whether we are indeed ready as a country to become a hub of petroleum in Africa. Good afternoon, Ishmael. Welcome to the marketplace.
Good afternoon.
All right. So what's your take on this particular, assertion by the Energy Minister that Ghana would become a petroleum hub in the next 10 years? I mean, what exactly do we mean by petroleum hub? Is it only for the downstream sector or for both sectors?
Well, I think it's part of the strategic direction the minister's administration wants the oil and gas sector to say that we don't want to just be involved in the upstream where we keep producing crude oil and selling them in Rotterdam or somewhere. That we want to strategically position ourselves, mainly with the way I hear the policy as it's being talked about is at the downstream, where we're going to target not just the Ghana market, but the sub-regional market, and make sure that everything petroleum, everything refinery, they are looking at coming to Ghana. So it's positioning ourselves in such a way that we have the capacity to deal with the West African market. That's how I see this whole policy.
Now, Nigeria has been a major player in the oil and gas sector in West Africa, as well as other countries, but why would we sidestep, or why hasn't these countries, taken this initiative? And do you think that we have the capacity to actually become a petroleum hub?
Well, I think that's the question that we all know, that even though Nigeria is very richly endowed with petroleum and the hydrocarbons, they still do have shortage. My only other concern, though, would be the fact that Dangote is planning to set up a very big refinery. If that thing happens, then we really don't have any competitive advantage. I think we were trying to capitalize on the situation as it is now. But if that changes going into the future, and they've given themselves 10 years, then it might not make economic sense to attempt to become a petroleum hub in West Africa if Dangote actually goes ahead. Because Nigeria, in the sub-region, they are the biggest market, and we know they are still struggling with imported crude petroleum products. So I think there has to be a big blueprint that will be subjected to stakeholder interrogation, and all these questions will be put to them. But I believe as a people, as a country, we need to have a strategic view as to how are we just going to be satisfied, content with the upstream, or we want to also look at the other segments of the value chain and strategically locate our place in this whole value chain and capitalize on it.
Now, another school of thought thinks that, we have not satisfied our demand, or many times we are unable to satisfy local demand. And why do we have to go, beyond our shores and try to supply Africa with crude, refined crude, so to speak?
Well, you would notice that they're talking about 120,000 barrels a day refinery. That's certainly not just for the Ghana market. And then you recall that there was this proposal to also build another refinery. In fact, there's one in the western region that they said they're going to use to target the sub-regional market. So yes, at the moment, we don't even have the capacity. Paul obviously has 45,000 barrels a day, but they are currently doing, I think, 20 or 25. That's if they have money to buy crude. So I think it's more of a futuristic plan than the current situation. But to aim to become a petroleum hub, you obviously should have the capacity, and at the moment we don't. That's why I believe they are looking rather at a 10-year time frame where they will have put in place all the necessary infrastructure to be able to qualify to call itself as the petroleum hub of West Africa.
Why don't we, continue to concentrate on our GRIC and develop it instead of, like what the minister said yesterday, making oil and gas another mainstream of the economy?
Sorry, Emmanuel, I missed what you just said.
Yeah, the minister stated yesterday that oil and gas is going to be made another mainstream of the economic development of Ghana. Why don't we concentrate on agricultural development and rather, want to use petroleum as well?
Okay, so I'm not sure it's going to be the only mainstay of the economy. I think that is going to be one of the many sectors they want to look at. And I think the future of this industry to a very large extent, will be determined by what happens post-Jubilee, post-Sankofa, post all the producing fields. We running out of not proven reserves. The Jubilee very soon will be entering into it's plateaued and it should be declining at the moment. So whatever plans we have must be based on proven reserves, and also whether or not we're going to be able to add to our. But you see, when you position yourself as a petroleum hub, you don't necessarily have to even have all the resources, the raw materials coming from your industry.
Okay.
Or your local indigenous petroleum product. You could, if you're able to refine, for example, products at a cheaper rate than bringing the product from Rotterdam or something like that, you are in business and you can capture the. But talking about whether I don't think it's either or. I think both could be looked at. For example, even there could be a linkage between the petroleum sector and also agriculture, because they're talking about fertilizer and all that, which is directly going to be important for the agricultural sector. It shouldn't be either or. I think all of that could be looked at the same time. And I'm sure we've told ourselves we want to avoid the infamous dark disease, where as a result of petroleum, discovery of petroleum, or other sectors of the economy will collapse.
All right.
So I think that's why it's important that we have a long-term plan that looks and takes a holistic view at everything and not just focus on petroleum to the neglect of other sectors.
Thank you very much for those thoughts. Ishmael Ejekumihene is the energy expert, and he's been commenting on the decision by the energy minister that the country is going to embark on establishing Ghana as a petroleum hub in the next 10 years. And that was stated yesterday at the ongoing Ghana International Petroleum Conference. And on that note, we wrap up this afternoon's edition of The Marketplace. It's been great having you on board throughout the whole week, and I hope you join us again same time Monday for more business stories. My name is Emmanuel Abuaji. Have a good afternoon.